Hello and welcome to our Lakeside chat. We are David Wofford and Katie Noonan, co-chairs of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we're so happy that you can join us tonight.
As we begin our program, it is important for us to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that Lake Merritt is part of Ohlone territory. We hear now from Corinna Gould, spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and co-founder of Segura Te Land Trust.
Good afternoon, relatives. My name is Corinna Gould. I am the spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We are here today at what most folks think of as Lake Merritt. We are in the territory of Huichin. Huichin is actually a territory that encompasses 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. And so this is a place that my ancestors have been since the beginning of time. My relationship to the land that I have been born to, raising my children and grandchildren here, has been to tell the story, the truth of what happened on this land before other people came here. I'm hoping that as we begin to learn these lessons of fires in California, the pandemic that's happening, that human beings come back to living in reciprocity with the earth.
Thank you, Corinna. So if ever there was a time in a week where, I feel that we are out of reciprocity with the earth, this would be such a week with our impending possible return of the harmful algal bloom in the bay, with all of the climate disasters that are going on throughout the world. There's a lot to be learned, and we want to acknowledge the wisdom of the Native people who were here and are here as we help to address some of these issues that we are facing. So I would like to talk briefly about some of the news of the week. Rather than call this highlights, I call this the news of the month, because most of us are aware that in the media, in the news, quite in the last several days, there's been a lot of publicity about the detection of the same phytoplankton organism that caused the red tide last August, with eerie correspondence between the time that organism was detected and when it was first detected in 2022. So I would have a slide to share some of the news that I have about that, and also to share some photos of the Rotary Nature Center Friends in Action monitoring plankton, and some of our youth education and contributions that have been made. So without further ado, okay, so we will put into chat and send in a post email links to recent news articles that have reported that the harmful alga Heterosigma akashiwo has been sighted in the bay. And the pictures that you see were taken by Damon Tai, who has been canvassing the coast of the bay, looking for taking plankton samples and examining them. And we'll see later, I have a slide, but Rotary Nature Center Friends has a long history of plankton monitoring. And we have also been following plankton in Lake Merritt on a daily basis the last several days, and have shared our photos with both Damon and water boards. And to date, it seems that the organism has not entered Lake Merritt, at least not yet. If you would like, what you can do if you would like to help out with this problem is to stay informed through the media. We have a link that I'll put into chat or share later with frequently asked questions shared by the San Francisco Regional Water Quality Board. And then also you can also be observant yourself, look for water as you go along the shores of Lake Merritt or along the shores of the bay for water that is discolored, reddish brown. You can report observations to the Baykeeper Pollution Hotline. You can, more importantly, because it will leave a lasting record, download the iNaturalist app to your phone. It's free and it's very easy to use. And you can add observations to a project set up by Damon just to collect information about, just to collect observations of organisms that have died along the shore, possibly affected by a new heterosigma bloom. So those are really valuable things that you can do. There's more, and I'm sure we can discuss that later when we have time. Next, I'd just like to share that Rotary Nature Center Friends Youth has been involved in collecting and submitting plankton samples to the California Department of Public Health for over a year now. We began before the plankton bloom, and we send them a preserved sample in, and they analyze it for the kinds of organisms. People have been really worried recently about one called Pseudonychia, which is one of the target species for this program. And we have come up negative, no Pseudonychia every time. We are also contributing to the state Department of Public Health monitoring lab by collecting monthly samples of water, fresh water, and sending it on ice to Sacramento. And July was our first month to do that. They will be able to see if there are any heterosigma in that sample. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we'll share that on our Facebook for sure. So the key thing here is that we're involving young people. These are the Team Oakland Youth Employment Partnership kids from this July, learning how to take a plankton tow. Another thing we look at is a whole battery of water quality measurements. We were participating in the Great Seki Dip-In this summer, and actually last week, and we found that the water in Lake Merritt is indeed very clear, as everybody can see, but it isn't the clearest it's ever been. It was clearer in 2017. Let's see. Next, I think that may be the last of my slides that I've made. I want to verbally mention and thank our Rotary Nature Center friends and Lake Merritt Institute partner friends who have been out collecting water samples to send to the state. We've been learning how to use a fancy protocol and working together, and it's been great to have everyone pulling together to try to protect the lake. We will be having a pop-up table tomorrow at the boathouse parking lot area, where we will do some water testing, and we will also do some plankton viewing, so you can see the kinds of things that people look at and that we look at in trying to evaluate the health of the water in Lake Merritt. So more to be said, but I'm going to stop right now because we have a wonderful guest to introduce today. A friend, someone I've known for a very long time, as many of us have, Eddie Dunbar. And we are so delighted that he has made time to come and talk to us today. So during his talk, you, I think, are muted, but if you would like to ask him a question, please, he prefers that people raise their questions, and we will make sure that you can be unmuted and ask him your questions. So don't be shy. This is a interactive program, and we want to. We're really looking forward to it. And does everybody anyone have any questions at this point? If not, I want to introduce one of our Rotary Nature Center's board members and staff people, Dr. Janice Lord Walker, who's going to, longtime friend of Eddie's, and she is going to introduce him for you tonight.
Hello. I was going to put that later on, but I'm starting with hello and good evening. Eddie Dunbar, he is a well-known, well-loved Oakland educator and naturalist. I've known Eddie for over 20 years, and his work with the youth of Oakland public schools has just been phenomenal. I call him the bug man, but of course he has real titles. So he's the founder and president of the Insect Science Museum. His day job is as a business analyst for the Geographic Information System Space Maintenance Management, and the app is CityWorks in Oakland Public Works. Evenings, weekends, vacations, and the hours in between, he heads the Insect Science Museum of California, based in Oakland. He created the entomological materials and science curriculum for the University of California, Berkeley, Mills College Education Department, Oakland Unified District, Alameda County's First Five Initiative, and Oakland Parks and Recreation. At the Insect Science Museum of California, where am I? He helps citizen scientists and naturalists to find channels to express their talents through real cool projects. As an author, he has published Insects of the San Francisco Bay Area in 1997, a University of California web guide. And this guide was inspiration for another web and a book-based version. Other guides include Lake Merritt and Greater Oakland Insects, and in 2013, and Insects of Wente Scout Club, Camp, no, not club, camp. He's one of our local guys. He went to Fremont High School, as we learned just a few minutes. My husband also went to Fremont High, 1970. So you're all in the family. And I thought that I would stop there, because when I've got so much information on you that I could use all the hour just to talk about you, Eddie. So I will give Eddie Dunbar his time to enlighten us about insects of Lake Merritt and the surroundings. And thank you for being here tonight. I'm really so pleased to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Katie. If you would be so kind, type your questions into the chat. I'm not able to present and also look at the chat, so I have some volunteers who are going to read those out or call on you to ask your question out loud. I'm going to start us off with a video, and that's going to kind of set the mood. I'm glad we got through the gloom and doom concerning what's happening with nature and the environment, but I'm going to cover that as well. But let's start off with this video. It's going to show you what kind of situation the world is in and some of the heroes, including the Insect Sciences Museum, doing work to reverse the problems with climate change. couple of photos left. This is our bug camp from a few years ago up at Sage Hen Creek, and there is Harley. Harley was my TA for my insect class up at Merritt College. So we got to see some of the challenges that nature and the environment has. And there are groups still, though, that are making a difference. Rotary Nature Center Friends is one of those groups. And I'm very glad to be here tonight to extol your virtues and to also talk about insects and the challenges that we have ahead of us. I don't want us to just sit here and just take in, that insects are great, but there's, I think, some steps that we can take to make sure that we still have a country, make sure that we still have a planet, and our children have a future. I'm Eddie Dunbar again. I am a business analyst with the City of Oakland in the Public Works Department, and my main purpose activity is supporting Oak 311. It's an app that's used by the public to let us know about infrastructure problems. That's potholes. It is street lights that are out, traffic signs that are down, traffic signals that are blinking the wrong way. Anything that beeps, buzzes, or is in the roadway is managed by Public Works. And so the app that we use is CityWorks or Oak 311. I'm an adjunct professor at Merritt College. I'm not going to read through all of these. You can read it yourself. But I'm also very active in nonprofits. And this is on the left, a picture of my family. This is my dad and my mother. This was taken in Japan, I think about 1964. And since then, my family has grown. This is my wife at the top left. We've been married 35 years. And we will be spending a month in Ecuador in December, deciding if that's where we want to live. Plenty of bugs in Ecuador, so there's a lot to do there. Wish me luck. My mother and dad are at the bottom left, me, my brother, also there. And then the family has grown. At the right is a picture of not my extended family. This is my family, including my children and wife's sisters, my nephews, just everybody. Like I mentioned, Oak 311 is what I work on at the City of Oakland, and I am the application administrator. I've been doing that since 2008. I've been the app administrator for Oak 311. It wasn't always called Oak 311, it was just called CityWorks, but we branded it, put it out there as an app and online. It is known to the public as Oak 311. And this app is a great app. Like I said, you could take pictures of a pothole and send it in. So we have lots of data. We've been collecting data since 2008. And I thought it would be great. We could take pictures of potholes. What if we could take a picture of a butterfly and have a website that would identify that for us? And lo and behold, something came out called iNaturalist. But I'll talk about iNaturalist in a little bit. With the data that we get from the app at the City of Oakland, we can see this is a chart that I created on what is nature worth. So this is what the city spends on what I consider to be nature. That's grounds maintenance at parks, tree work, picking up illegal dumping in and around parks, and maintenance of facilities within the park. So this is what the City of Oakland is spending on nature. So, it behooves us to take advantage of that. We have great parks and great things that we can do there, including Lake Merritt. I kind of got my start doing entomology. Well, I started as a kid. My aunt says I was doing bugs before I could crawl. But this is my project at UC Berkeley. This is called City Bugs. And I'm doing a demo at McClymonds High School here with Dr. Bernard Lewis on the left and the late, great Dr. Don Dalston, who I met when I was 12 years old. And so the project had some lofty goals. We ended up doing quite a bit. We got a lot of photographs and web pages with the help of students. But to insects, If we stop and look, there are tons of insects around. This is a blossom of a blackberry. It's a very small blossom. It's only about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch wide. And in the middle of it is a very tiny insect. And that is one of our native bees. It's Hylaeus. It is a mass bee. So it's very small. And I think if we don't stop and look, we're going to miss a lot of the nature that's out there. What I'm involved in is field photography. So I'm taking pictures of insects in the wild. And I'm also encouraging and training other people to do the same. We do bio blitzes and support bio blitzes. There's some blitzes going on out there where you don't have an entomologist or an insect person to come and do the identifications. We'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of iNaturalist in a little bit. And then I do training. I'm a professor at Merritt College in the landscape horticulture department. So a lot of what I'll talk about today in terms of what we can do ourselves to help out are going to be landscape centered. And then I do workshops. We have an annual bug camp that we do. We just came back from a bug camp about mid-June, and there are other events going on. I'm creating field guides and virtual field guides. This picture here is of a virtual field guide that we have up at Joaquin Miller Park. And so what it is we're creating field guides, but field guides take a while to put out. So we'll just take a page out of the field guide and set them around for people to walk around and read. And that's a virtual field guide. You're going to see virtual field guides throughout this presentation. So if you would, I'm going to have you be interactive. And if you can give me a thumbs up every time you see a virtual field guide or you hear me say virtual field guide, let's try that out. Virtual field guide. Thumbs up. All right. Okay, great. So this is our iNaturalist project. I ran this today. We have 621,000 observations in the Bay Area. And in our project, we've got 10,000 people participating who are identifying the insects that we have online. I think that's really incredible. There are a lot of insects in the Bay Area, and you can't get pictures of all of them. And then you can't even distinguish all of them. Some are so microscopic that you have to do DNA just to figure out what's what. But that we have 36,000 people, almost 37,000 people submitting photographs. I think that's really great. We're able to do a lot here. I'm able to go in and run reports. A report I did for Bay Nature, I was asked whether or not there's been an increase in iNaturalist observations on iNaturalist by Bay Nature. And we were able to look at over the past years what the percentage increase was. So in 2019, for example, there were 15 observations. Oh, and this is in Joaquin Miller Park, 15 observations of flies. And in 2021, there were 46 observations. So that was a percentage increase of over 300. And it was similar with the other groups, the Coleoptera, which are the beetles, the Hymenoptera, which are the ants, bees, and wasps, the spiders, the Rhiinae, that order of spiders, and the Lepidoptera, which are the butterflies and moths. So in every area during the pandemic, people were out in the parks. They were out in the parks, and when they were taking pictures of insects. So this was great. I'm sure there were other things that saw similar increases, like birds, mammals, reptiles, but it shows what we can do when we have free time and the impetus to do good things for nature. So during that 2020 and 2021, there was an increase. Like I mentioned earlier, we just came back from our bug camp, and this is our Del Puerto bug camp. This is the first bug camp that we had so close to home. We've done the Mojave Desert, Seychan Creek, which is up in Truckee. We've done that a few times. But this one was close to home, and we had a lot of people show up. And bug camp, a lot of people may not want to go to bug camp, but it's more about, it's as much about people as it is about the bugs. So you get to meet great people there, see other naturalists, other people who are wanting to learn not just about insects and nature and ecology, but also photography. And so these happen to be three people who are active in our Facebook group. That's on the left is Michael Hawk, who has a podcast called Nature's Archive. Mara Vonchak, who's a professor at Stanford University. She runs something called the Jasper Ridge Ant Survey. And she also, she's an expert with ants. She's done a talk for us and for my class. And she also runs a group called the BioBlitz Club. And all they do is BioBlitzes all the time. And then some of you may know Elizabeth Doherty. You might know Katie Elizabeth because I think you were in the class together.
Well, we weren't in the class, but I know her really well. Yeah, we cross paths and talk quite often. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and don't let me do all the talking because I will. So Elizabeth heads a group called Holy H2O, and she was looking for a board member. So I became her board member, but I told her that you have to become a board member of ISMC. So we share each other. So the bug camp was really great. I think it's probably the best attended bug camp we had because it was so close, and some of the views were great. This is a view out over the reservoir, and this is a nest in this tree of either a raven or a crow. Insects and birds go together. Without insects, you're not going to have birds. And if you think about it, what kinds of parties do you like to go to? Do you like to go to parties that have food or don't have food? So when you don't have food, when you don't have insects around to be eaten, nobody comes to that party. They go to another party.
Eddie, someone would like you to explain what a BioBlitz is.
Okay, great, good idea. So a BioBlitz is where a bunch of people get together, usually naturalists and or photographers, but they can be scientists, biologists, they can just be neighborhood people. And they go out and they take pictures of everything. They record everything. Mostly it's done with photographs, but there can just be written records that go onto a website. Now we use this website called iNaturalist, but BioBlitz has been around before iNaturalist. And so we get a record of what is at a location. We've been asked to come to a farm or something like that and just survey what is there. And so all of that goes onto the iNaturalist website. And people are sitting there right now waiting to identify any picture that you send up. And we've been in projects where we're loading stuff up. And as we're loading stuff up, people are identifying it from all over the world. And you're getting this this community participation. It's not just one researcher sitting here. You're getting the value of thousands of people with knowledge spread throughout the world, and that's really great. So that's what a BioBlitz is. Here are the insects. We're looking at the birds, of course, and then at the insects. This is a pair of Anthaxia. These are metallic wood-boring beetles. These ones I think, are smaller, and they tend to be in stems of plants. This is one of the signs of life. I think there are 5. Janice, correct me if I'm wrong. There are 5 qualifications of life, and one of them is reproduction.
Correct.
Yeah, so this proves that they're alive. And yeah, so these are beetles in the genus Anthaxia. What we're looking at here is a damselfly. So damselflies are really interesting. They're related to dragonflies. And if you think of a damselfly and a dragonfly, dragons and damsels tend to be the smaller things. The dragonflies are more robust. Now they have really thick bodies, where the damselfly, which this one is, has a thinner body. Really attractive damselfly called the spread wing. Its wings spread out left and right. perpendicular to the body when it's at rest, which is unusual for damselflies because usually their wings are over their back. We were out there doing lots of photography. Here's Elizabeth shooting something at the campsite. Other things that we saw are this earwig. This is a European earwig, and European earwigs, where do you think they're from? They're from Europe. Hey, you're good. You guys are good. And so they're from a colder climate. And what's really interesting about these earwigs, and I've seen this in a few places, is when it's really super hot, like in the 90s, these earwigs are running around like crazy. They're climbing up trees. They're flying. Usually, you're not going to see these earwigs flying. And I think with the temperature and humidity at a certain level, they're able to attain flight. And so what they're doing is they're climbing to the top of, this is, I think, thistle. And it took off from the thistle here. Dermaptera earwigs are really interesting. You don't see wings here. The wings are tucked under these two plates right here. And the cerci that are used for pinching and also in mating will be used to fold up the wings under here. Their name is Dermaptera, which means wingless skin. Atera means no wing, but it's a misnomer because this one actually does have wings. And then we have another interesting thing at Del Val is this California bee assassin, aptly named because it does eat bees. It has raptorial forelegs, which are used for grasping, a lot like a praying mantis would grab things. But this one, you can barely make it out, but there's a beak underneath this head that points backwards. And that's used to jab into the bee. An enzyme comes out, knocks the bee out, turns it into a milkshake, and the bug slurps the milkshake, the fluids of the insect. Yeah, so this is a beak. This is an indication that this is what's called a true bug. Okay. And then something was really interesting that was here was this guy here. What do you think this is?
Looks like an ant.
Looks like an ant.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's an ant mimic. Just about everything about it says ant. You've got the head, the darkened head. You've got the thorax, and the abdomen is rounded like a ball, and then you have something that looks like a connector between the thorax and the abdomen. But that is actually false. There is a dark area here that looks like a connector. That's just pigmentation. What's really going on is you've got this whole flange here, this disc that sticks out, that is part of the bug. This is actually a bug, and the definition is that it has this tube-like structure under it, which is used to pierce either plants or other insects or arthropods. So this is actually a bug that is a mimic of an ant. This is a very interesting find at Del Val Reservoir. So some of what we like to do is, as we're taking our photographs, is talk with people that we see on the trail and share our experiences and tell them what we're out there doing. The book that I wrote, Insects of the San Francisco Bay, Lake Merritt and Greater Oakland Insects, was first published in 2008, and then we did a revision in 2013. Pages from this are used to make the virtual field guide. Thumbs up? Okay, every time. Virtual field guide. Okay, so this display has been at the Rotary Nature Center for many years, I think from like 2006 to 2012. And there are events that we have there. This was an event where we brought a digital photomicroscopy system and we took pictures of insects that people brought in from the park.
Oh, Eddie, we have a question in chat. We could. Someone asked, what's the difference between an insect and a bug?
Okay, so bugs to a scientist, are a very specific type of insect. Okay, and they are characterized by having a proboscis. Under their head is a tube that goes backwards, and that's used to stick into plants or into other creatures to suck out juices. So, I mean, there are more things to go over, but I actually don't. It'd be better if I showed you a diagram. But beetles, wings are very similar to beetles because they have a hardened, thickened set of wings that are at the front. There are two pairs of wings on insects. The front wings are of beetles and bugs are thickened, and beetle wings goes down the back as a straight line. Okay, so if you look at a lady beetle, and they used to be called ladybugs, now they're called lady beetles, because they have a straight line down the back, which makes them a beetle. Bugs have overlapping wings, and where there's an overlap, where they come together, there's a triangle, and that is called a oh my God, what is it called? Scutellum. So you've got the overlapping wings and the scutellum, which makes it a bug.
Is the word bug short for something? Or that's the chemical, a scientific word?
I've heard the British call bugs buggers. So it could be short for the British. I don't know. We need an etymologist. Katie, get us an etymologist.
Entomologist.
But buggers.
No, I'm what do you call it? A mimic, and very much a mimic in that regard. You want me to try? I'm trying to look it up on maybe someone could look it up online or something.
We need an English teacher. Yeah.
Etymology. Yeah. My son, who's a history teacher, helped me a lot with that etymology question. And yeah, we need somebody who does this in their daily life. So if there's anyone out there who works with word etymologies, you want to check that out for us?
Ladybugs are called ladybirds in England.
Yes.
So that's what Joy said.
Okay, so yeah, we do photographs in the lab as well, and this was called the Pollinator Palooza, this event at Lake Merritt. Just recently, Holy H2O hosted a bee talk, and that was done by Emil Petronik here. He's a local bee expert, and he took us out into the gardens at Lake Merritt, and we got photographs of insects there. Okay, and so I'm going to introduce you to some of the native bees of Lake Merritt. This one, you may not be able to rake the names out. And what I also want to help you with is what you can do if you're a gardener, landscaper, or in charge of landscaping. There's help that our native bees need. This is the longhorn bee. Its genus is Melissoides. It's a ground nester. Now, what a lot of people want to do now, the new thing, is to mulch. But 75% of native bees live underground. So if you mulch your entire garden, there is no room left for native bees to survive. What I tell the youngsters is that the mama bees can't get to the baby bees. So what you want to do is leave some areas of bare ground. And you're going to see that in a few of these slides. This is a ground nester, and so you want to mulch selectively. This is the small carpenter bee. Now the larger version of this lives in wood. These live in, I've seen them very often in the soft part of a plant. You know, when you do a cut of a plant, there's soft material in the middle. They will dig into that. The females at the end of the year, they'll dig in there. And sometimes a few will live in there together. And that's how they'll overwinter. Now, if you cut your plant and then end up cutting it again, you're cutting these bees out. Some people burn those cuttings. Some people throw them away. But what's happening is the bees are not going to survive that second cutting. So you want to be careful about how you're pruning. And not only that, okay, so in the spring, most of the females will leave except for one, and she will dig even further down into that cutting. I'm sorry, into that part of the plant that's still alive, and she will begin her brood there. It might only be about 6 or 7 young. The native bees are all solitary. They're solitary females, so they're not, able to get a bunch together to say, let's go attack somebody, like honeybees do. Native bees tend to be solitary. The only native bee I know that's not solitary, there's actually 2 now, is the bumblebees. And I don't know anybody who's ever been stung by a bumblebee. Then we have new bee.
Oh, I've heard of people. I have.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, just in my experience, native bees don't sting people, and that's what you'll hear repeated a lot. And then in Southern California, there's a new colony that was found. I think people didn't know it was here before. It's a group of bees called stingless bees, which seem menacing, but they actually don't have a sting.
Do native bees make honey?
No, not in California. There is a native bee that was on islands on the East Coast when the settlers first got here, but I think that bee has either had its range really reduced or it's gone extinct. I don't remember. The only other bee that makes something similar is some of the bumblebees will make something that's like a honey, but it's more viscous. It's not as solid as honey is. So they'll make those, and you'll see them you'll see them in the tubes. Yeah, I'm sorry, you'll see them in the nests.
So Anthony made a really good point that I've heard.
Yeah.
That the stingless bees actually don't sting, but they bite pretty ferociously.
Yes. Yeah, and they know where to bite too. So they will go around the tender spots. That's going to be your lips, your nose, your eyes. Yeah.
There's the honeypot ant, but then I thought there were some bumblebees that put honey in pots underground.
They do. It's really not honey. It's not. Honey's more thickened.
Okay.
What bumblebees do is very viscous.
Okay.
So this is something that you'll see a lot. It's really weird. I wish I could show you a good picture of the eyes on this horsefly-like carpenter bee. It's like the eyes are looking into your soul. There's some crazy looking eyes on this. It's hard to mistake this for other carpenter bees, given the kinds of eyes it has. And that's on the male. And these are very common at Lake Merritt.
Oh.
I'm going to show you another bee that was photographed at Lake Merritt. Now this is interesting. This is a bee that we used to not see in Oakland. This is the valley carpenter bee, but as the climate has changed, things that live in the valley can now live out here towards the coast. This is called the teddy bear, or also the valley carpenter bee. This is a male. Males do not have stings. So this can be handled. It can defend itself. It's pretty aggressive when it flies about and can, fool you into thinking it might sting you. But male bees do not have stingers. So this can be handled. This is a dead wood nester. So it may nest in a log or something like that. So be careful as you're, tossing things out, that you're not tossing out or destroying habitat for bees. There's a big fuss at Diamond Park when this champagne oak died. Anybody hear about that? There was an oak tree that was dying, and
Yes.
yeah,
I used to swim there.
Yeah, People didn't want that oak. It was right by the scout hut, really massive, beautiful oak, but it was dead inside. And the arborists knew it was dead. They knew it was a risk to people walking by. So against what people want, they went and cut it down. But kind of the mitigation for it was that they would take the wood and put it in another area of the park, not just cart it off. What Public Works wants to do a lot, because there's risk to residents that are walking by and things like that, they'll throw trees away. But what I've been able to convince our tree group to do, and they actually wanted to do it, is not throw away stumps. So there are trees that are cut down, and they often will not go back and get the stump. And that it's really low priority because the main thing is the tree doesn't fall on the car. But if we can leave those stumps in place, that's habitat for a lot of different types of bees. Not only that, there are other wood dwelling insects that need to be there just for tree health and for the health of the ecosystem. So this is one of those bees that we
question.
Yeah.
I had a question, Eddie. Is there another name for the valley? It was the valley bumblebee. Let me check the chat. Valley carpenter bee. Valley carpenter.
Yeah, the valley carpenter bee. There was a name change recently, but I think the new name is Xylocopa sonorina. It used to be Xylocopa. I don't remember the other name. Yeah, but if you go to bugguide.net and look up Valley Carpenter Bee, you'll get the correct name. And it should also show you the previous name. That's bugguide.net. That's the go-to place for getting formal entomological sound IDs. A lot of us have heard about the mason bee. It's a very efficient pollinator in orchards. So this is a better pollinator of orchard trees than the European honeybee. And so this has actually got a commercial following where people have made nests specifically for these. They also will sell the pupae of these for you to get started in your garden or in your orchard. This is a mason bee. It's a type of megachilid. It's a leafcutter bee. So it cuts leaves. Sometimes, I don't know, in your roses, you may see these perfect circles and you're wondering who came by here and stamped out these perfect circles on my roses. And it's this bee here or one of its relatives. And what's different about them is a lot of bees will carry their pollen on their legs. This one carries it on the bottom of its abdomen. This one may be a male and doesn't actually carry pollen, but that's where they carry them. And often their abdomen will be up in the air because they don't want to rub off the pollen. This one doesn't live, most of them live in tunnels, the leafcutter bees, but this one actually builds nests made out of mud. And one of the reasons that a lot of creatures are threatened is that humans are very good at not losing water. If you look around maybe a radius of about 500 feet of your property, you're not going to find a leaky hose. You're not going to find water left over from the spring, from the winter. You're not going to find springs. There's no water out there for these creatures to survive. And so things like mud nesters are having a special difficulty in just surviving. One of the recommendations in landscaping, if you want to have help pollinators out, is to have some kind of water feature. I'm not showing a water feature here, but you can look it up. This next bee is very, very tiny. This is the one that we saw in the blackberry blossom. I don't know what plant this is, but you can see the stamens are very large in comparison to the bee. So this bee is about the size of a grain of rice.
Mhm.
Very dentate. You can see holes throughout the body. It's a very spectacular bee. A lot of bees, a lot of things that we think are just little white things flying by, little black things flying by. Those are bees. We have 1,600 species of native bees in California. California is actually a biodiversity hotspot for native bees. We have more native bees in California than most countries do. And this is the same bee again in the blackberry blossom. This bee here is called a digger bee. It doesn't have really a common name. These suckers are so fast, you can barely get a picture of them. This one was taken by Tora Rocha. Anybody know Tora, who used to be the supervisor at Lake Merritt, park supervisor at Lake Merritt? She got this picture. These guys very rarely stop, and they are ground nesters. Another ground nester is the black-tailed bumblebee. And that's very similar to the yellow-faced bumblebee. See how these two look alike? Okay.
Very similar.
Yeah, so the difference is there is way more yellow here at the front of this bee. Whereas on this bee, there's not so much yellow. And this bee tends to be fuzzy, where this one has more erect, straight hairs that kind of poke out, where this one is, again, fuzzy.
There's a question about your comment about bees needing standing water. Does that mean that the urban bees' water needs are in competition with human needs to not have standing water for mosquitoes?
Oh yeah, I hear what you're saying. They don't prefer standing water. Most animals will prefer fresh water. Mosquitoes do better in standing water because there are very tiny things in the water. I want to say protozoa, but they're very tiny organisms in the water that they feed on. And so that standing water is better for mosquitoes. But most animals will prefer fresh water. But the water feature is when the water is running like that, you're not going to get, you're not likely to get mosquitoes because they don't do well in water that's moving.
That's interesting.
Eddie, we're coming. I'd like to ask you.
Yeah.
Oopsie. I don't want to do that to you. We'd like to take a short break in about a minute to do our thank yous.
Okay.
And then are you going to be able to stay to answer some more questions and talk?
Yeah, if you need me to wrap up, I can do that too.
Well, no, I don't. We would love to have you stay, but we just like to, give our credits and for about 2 minutes and then open it up to everybody who would like to continue the discussion. I've got some questions about visiting Lake Merritt and looking for insects, say, in the marsh. And
Okay.
some other questions and some observations that I've made, and I wonder if other people have made observations you'd like to ask Eddie about. I mean, Eddie's just a fountain of knowledge. He has so much to, you could talk to him. And also I want you to, are you going to be teaching your course again at Merritt?
Yeah, I taught it from this year already. So it ended in June.
Yeah.
I won't be doing it again in the fall, and next year will be kind of weird. I won't be back into the US until maybe mid-January. So I might miss. Yeah, I might have to do it in the fall next year. I'm going to go through two more
Yes, please. Yeah.
bees.
Yes.
This is called the ultra green sweat bee by people at UC Berkeley. It is very, very extremely green. This is a female. Its formal name is a Texas striped bee, but only the male is striped. This is another one of those leafcutter bees. You can see it holding a piece of rose, and its abdomen is lifted up because pollen is down here on the bottom. And then this is one more leafcutter bee that uses fibers from lamb's ear to line its tunnel. And that will be all that I cover for now.
As we near the end of our hour, would like to thank everybody who's here. Special thanks to Eddie Dunbar, the Rotary Nature Center Friends staff, the Lake Merritt Boating Center, the Lake Merritt Institute, Oakland Adopt a Spot, Team Oakland, and New Voices volunteers with RNCF this summer, Measure DD and California Action Corps Fellows, and everyone in Oakland. You're all important. So coming up on September, we have another free Lakeside Chat, number 34, and this one will be about climate change. We are thrilled to have Professor Mark Rauzan from Laney College. He's going to talk to us about climate change and its effect in the Arctic, in the Bering Sea, where he's made 2 cruises and visits with scientists and in the last 2 years, and he'll have lots to tell us about integrating global topics like this into teaching in our local community colleges, which would apply to many other environmental education situations. Tomorrow, in August 5th, there's going to be a cleanup offered by OPR NYD at the Nature Center from 9 to 1. If you would like to join in there, you might come by to see what you can do to help. And then we're going to be doing water quality testing with Rotary Nature Center friends tomorrow as well, from 11 to 1 p.m. In the Lake Merritt Boating Center parking lot. We'll have some microscopes. We'll take a plankton tow to send to the Department of Public Health, and we'll see what kinds of plankton are there at the Lake Merritt Boating Center dock tomorrow. So if you're interested in some of those things and how people look at the health of the water, please come by. We have Lakeside Chats are rebroadcast by the City of Oakland KTOP TV, and we're very thankful to them for making our programs available to people who can't come on Friday nights. So you can go to the city website and search KTOP to find the next showing. The showings are on Sundays from 6 to 7. The first 2 weeks of the month are devoted to our archives, and the last 2 are devoted to our current month program. Okay, I want to thank a variety of people who have helped us out. The Frederick E. Hart Foundation for Educational Opportunity has been very generous in helping to support our programming and our Lakeside Chat programs. We want to thank our volunteers, program participants, partners, and everyone at Lake Merritt. If you like what we do and would like to support us, please visit our website where you can make a donation. Here are some of our staff people. We want to especially thank Rob Lamone, who's our producer, and we'll be making a recording edited to share with you all in a week or so. He is currently on vacation, so it might take a little longer than the 1 week or so we usually have as a turnaround time. So our mission as Rotary Nature Center Friends, we are an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit advocating for the Rotary Nature Center in Lakeside Park as an interpretive education and science center for all the people of Oakland and as steward of the Wildlife Refuge. You can visit our website and you'll see some of the things that we do and some of the ways that we express our mission now and some of our ideas for the future involving collaboration with the whole community. So I'm going to stop my share now and thank you again. And hi, Eddie, that was a pretty quick closing. And so it's really great to have you. We have some questions. Okay, we had that one with 5 new ones. And then, okay, let's see.
One question is with
Yes.
just a backyard to provide habitat for native bees, what steps could you recommend to help the bees make use of that space?
Number one thing is don't use pesticides. Pesticide, yeah, thank you, Janice, Dr. Walker. Pesticides are not fully understood. We're finding out now some things are toxic to humans. I mean, if something that important is not disclosed by a pesticide company, what else is going on that we don't know about? Right now, there's something that's really, really bad. It's called a neonicotinoid. It's a class of pesticides that are systemics. So you can soak seeds in neonicotinoids, and when the plant grows, the entire plant is toxic, poisonous. The leaves are toxic, the pollen is toxic, and the nectar is toxic. So pesticides is number one. Some kind of water feature would be great. You also want to plant types of plants that will produce, for native bees, that will produce nectar and pollen all year long. So there are different cycles of different bees that need different resources at different times throughout the year. There is a book by Dr. Gordon Franke at UC Berkeley called California Bees and Blooms, and it has a breakdown of what to plant where and when. There's some areas where, for example, certain types of milkweed should be planted, but other types should not be planted. Monarchs are having a hard time right now because people plant the wrong milkweed, which makes the monarchs stay on the plant later in the season than die in the winter, where usually the plant would die and the monarchs would migrate. So it's the things that we do are disastrous. When I try to show people what an average garden looks like to a native bee, what our gardening practices look like to native bee, looks like where the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. They cannot make use of our landscaping practices. So they go extinct. They go extinct in the area, and if they go extinct in multiple areas, they go extinct permanently. So I'm going to just name those two. Plants that native bees eat. Okay. Native bees are like kids. It's like you give them something and they turn their head. I don't eat that. They evolved with certain plants, and as those plants give off cues to the native bees that say that I am a resource. And then the other thing, we need to have water and no pesticides.
Yes, so really, thank you so much for that overview and tip. Jim Covell, are you here?
I am.
Great, join us. You had some interesting things to say.
Hi, Eddie, and first of all, Eddie, thanks for a fabulous presentation this evening.
Thank you.
A lot of things that are important in our lives and just go unnoticed if we really aren't tuned in to all the small life around us. So really appreciate that. I made a connection, especially when you were talking about bugs back there, and the fact that we wouldn't have the Rotary Nature Center without bugs. Bugs came.
Bugs became.
Yeah, he was the one that he loved bugs, and actually his little nature center up in the Oakland Hills is called the Bug House. And when we lost the Bug House, that became the genesis for building a new nature center down at Lakeside Park. And it housed the books and some of the artifacts and so on from Bugs Cane original Bug House. And
was that Diamond O?
Pardon?
Was the location at Diamond O?
No, it was up in the Montclair area. Yeah,
Yeah, that was Diamond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it eventually became a school up there.
Mhm.
And so we really just the whole idea of insect life and bugs and our love for the small things like that go way, way back with naturalists around the Bay Area. And I'm glad you're really keeping that tradition alive for us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah, I actually met Martin Griffith out at the Martin Griffith Preserve, and he wrote an article about, is it Bugs Kane or Bugs McCain?
It was Bugs Kane.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I read that article and got to take a picture with him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
I'm dropping something into chat. So I had asked Andrew Cullen if he knew of any insects that lived in Lake Merritt, and he sent me a big long email, and I just dumped it into the chat.
Okay.
Anyone is interested, it has some references to insects that actually live in brackish and marine type situations. Sounded interesting to me. So I had a question. I don't want to go ahead of anybody else, so let's see.
I think David had a question.
Oh,
He
David's here.
just
Yes.
said that he's so proud to have come from the same school that you came from. I don't know if I shortened it, or is that what I think? Okay, good. We're also happy you come from Fremont High School. I know you see Berkeley and all the rest of the stuff, but we're so happy that you're from Fremont High School.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anthony asked if you have any tips for using microscopes for looking at insects.
Microscopes are okay for some stuff. When I'm in the field and I need something quick, I'm using a magnifying loupe. And there is a group called precisionproducts.us where you can get loupes very, very inexpensively. They have a $25 minimum, I think, but I've gotten 20, 30 power loupes that have been very, very useful in the field. Microscopes, there used to be a field microscope that was sold by BioQuip, but I don't know, any entomology people here will know BioQuip served the world, getting you every kind of entomological supply that you never knew you needed. They went out of business last year, but had been in business, I think, 60 years, served every community, every university. It was the one go-to place for entomological equipment. There still are some field microscopes that are out there. I would probably test one out before I bought one, because lighting is always an issue when you're trying to light your specimen, and if you don't have power in the field, that could be a problem.
So Eddie, surprised. I've had students in the field, and they love to look at bugs, and there are some that become iNaturalist hobbyists in their own right as high school kids, which is pretty impressive. But they generally started out with ladybugs, and were surprised that there was more than one type, and immediately had a lot of hypotheses to think about. That was great. So is it possible to go bug hunting with like an iPhone? And what are some good starter insects?
Yes, actually, let me go and I'm going to show you a page. This is actually towards the end of the presentation. Wow, do I really have that many slides? Okay, hold on a second. There's something I can recommend. You can get these on Amazon. I'm going to share my screen. Why is it not showing? Oh, I got to do this. Now where did it go? There are these adapters you can get. They run from about $5 to, if you really want to spend a lot, there is some value for getting the expensive ones, but read the descriptions. This is a set. And one of these this is the macro. You can take this and clip it onto this says it goes with, will work on an iPhone, a Samsung, and a Google Pixel. These are about, looks like $15 to $20. So you can do this, but some of the iPhones already have a macro setting. So I would try that out first before going and buying this, but this will get you some magnification. And be careful that make sure you get one that has magnification, not just one that's a macro. Some of these all they do is they allow you to get closer, which makes the insect bigger. But if you can get a magnification on it like 5 times, 10 times, that's even better. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Lisa wants to know if there are sphinx moths at Lake Merritt.
There are sphinx moths at Lake Merritt. Now you've got to go into the garden center. I don't think there's much foliage around the perimeter of the lake to see things like that. So sphinx moths are a type of moth that there's day flying versions and there's night flying versions. They have a very long proboscis, so their tube can go deep down into flowers. And so you're looking for flowers that are shaped like horns, where the typical bee is not able to get its proboscis down into that. That's where you're going to find those sphinx moths.
Eddie, I was wondering about the dragonflies we've been seeing a lot in the gardens and everywhere, but I saw a pair that was dipping into Lake Merritt with the females dipping her abdomen in. I was wondering, do those guys have do those offspring have any prognosis of surviving? The salinity of the lake now is very, very salty.
Yeah. What part of the lake was it?
It was right by the boathouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a really nice place inside the garden center that has fresh water. Mm-hmm. Maybe they couldn't find that. I've never seen dragonflies in Lake Merritt, but I've seen them around the perimeter flying around. So I think there may be a chance that they could survive. What you saw was called a mating wheel. It's where, when I explain this to my students, they have a hard time with it. What happens is the male is really tricky. He'll put a sperm patch on his chest, and then he'll grab the female by the back of her head. And then her automatic response is to act like she's going to sting. So her female parts come in contact with the male sperm on the chest, and she gets pregnant when she tries to defend herself. And then he takes her and he drags her around and shows her where to lay eggs. So if the eggs are getting laid in the wrong place, it's the guy's fault.
It's on him.
Yeah.
It's always the guy's fault.
Yeah.
Okay. David has a question.
Ooh.
Go ahead, David.
No, he has no mic.
Oh, right.
So are you going to read it, Katie? Are you going to read it?
Sure. So David wonders, would you have any comment on the moths of Liverpool at the advent of the coal and industrial revolution?
So that is an example of evolution, natural selection. Some people have trouble with the word in theory of evolution. So natural selection is a better way to explain it. And it's both the same. It's where you have a population, in this case, in Liverpool, of these white moths. Okay. The white moths were on birch. They landed on the birch. Nobody could see them. Great. There are some examples of incredible camouflage where a creature can look exactly like the leaf that it feeds on. So these moths evolved to camouflage on the birch. Okay, so along comes coal, and all of the byproduct of the coal ends up on the trees, turning these white trees black. Now these white moths think that they're hiding on these black trees, and so they're getting picked off by the birds. But There are some that don't get picked off. Those are ones that are not white. Within every gene pool, you have variation. And within these moths was the ability to be black. And so these black moths started surviving, and they passed their genes on to the next generation. And then you had black moths on these formerly white trees. I think it's amazing. And it happens still. It still happens. Yeah, it happens every day. And yeah,
example.
It just doesn't happen to the rate. So there's this thinking. What is survival of the fittest? What is the creature that's going to survive? It's not the one that's most fit. It's no longer survival of the fittest. It's survival of the adaptable. Can you adapt? That's who survives.
So I believe when they cleaned up that they did observe a reversal of that.
With the Liverpool moths?
I believe, I don't know if it was Liverpool, but I believe that they did.
There could be examples of this happening right in Lake Merritt as we speak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You have maybe some crustaceans that don't do well in low O2 environments. They have offspring that go up to the surface to get air. And, they survive.
Yeah. And in fact, the adaptation takes place over many generations. It doesn't have to be something that happens in one generation, but in every characteristic we look at, there's some variation, and just the slightest differences can help fitness out, can be selected and passed forward. So that was we heard from two speakers. We heard from James Costa recently, talking about that realization that both he and Darwin had almost simultaneously about the importance of variation and natural selection. It's very cool. I'm sure a lot of it's going on. A lot of it's going on because as climate changes, the environment's changing, and what's fit is no longer maybe the same as it used to be. Yeah. That's a very cool example. Let's see, what else?
Are there other questions? Anybody?
Let's see. So I'm hoping, Eddie, that there will be that there will be another course, because yours was just awesome, but nobody could replace you in terms of your good humor, your creativity, and all the great videos you used to show. It was really a wonderful experience to be a student of Eddie's, and I hope you continue the bug camp so that I can eventually get there.
We're going to kidnap you.
I would love to come. I will get there. I will. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
And hopefully you'll be able to come to the lake after the beginning of the year when things settle out for you a bit. You might be able to come to the lake and work with kids or just anybody who's there to share your knowledge and enthusiasm.
Keep me posted.
I will. Yeah. Are there any more questions here that let's see.
David said thank you to Eddie, and thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. It's been a wonderful evening, and I'll say, Rob will be making a edited version, which will have all of you in it, of course, but it will be, the glitches that we may have had in the gaps will be fixed. And we'll send it to Eddie too to look at before we send it out to everybody. And it's really just been such a pleasure. We have
Katie Lisa wants to know your email so she can get all her prizes.
Is that
absolutely me? Let me share that with everyone in chat again, so you can hound me. Please send me an email, and I will definitely get back to you sooner or later about your prize. We are going to be out at the lake tomorrow, hopefully seeing the water and the shoreline as beautiful as it was this morning. And we'll be testing the water. If you're around, you can stop by at that time too. You can, we'll put the Rotary Nature Center Friends website in there, or you could Google it. It's a Google Sites website. We'll get that in there. I'll send it out to everybody. And
Rachel says, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge and for those wonderful photos.
Thank you.
Eddie, it was fantastic. So I guess it's time to say good night. And yes, it was wonderful. Thank you.